Geology. Welcome everybody to the mini geology radio show at KPFT HD2 channel. This is your host Daniel Minizini, your inquisitive geologist here from Houston, Texas. Welcome to all the listeners around the country and around the world. Another show dedicated to the link between our beloved discipline of geology and society at large. We have here as a guest today Andrea Fildani. Andrea is co-chair of the scientific committee for the International Sedimentological Geosciences Congress, which will be held in Flagstaff in Arizona in April of this year. The Congress is organized by the SEPM in conjunction with the AIS and the GSA. Thanks also to the work made by Andrea and others. So, Andrea, I would like to call him today an ambassador of the sedimentology. Andrea, are you here with us?
Yes, very nice to be here with you guys.
Welcome, ambassador. I call you an ambassador. I think you are. And tell us, Andrea, which kind of geologist are you?
Well, I'm a sedimentary geoscientist, but I'm mostly, just an earth scientist. I really like everything about, our planet and the processes that shape our planet. So I've been doing all sorts of different things. So most recently, I work on, mostly paleoceanography problems, but doing organic biogeochemistry, other things like that. So, but personally, I'm really what I would like to call an earth scientist with a dedication to sedimentary geosciences.
Andrea, why are we talking with you today?
Well, first of all, we're talking about this Congress, and I think the Congress is a relatively big deal for SCPM, and I wanted to kind of introduce you guys to what SCPM is and why this Congress is an important Congress for this organization. So SCPM is an international nonprofit society, and it was formed to disseminate scientific information on sedimentary geosciences. So, and it started in 1926. It's a very interesting story because it's actually a spin-off from the American Association of Petroleum Geologists, and he had a different vision about the earth sciences and specifically sedimentary geosciences. But we're talking about 1926. So if you put the historian hat on, actually the acronym meant something then. It was the SCPM meant the Society of Economic Paleontologists and Mineralogists, and it literally was like a spin-off of AAPG. They were not necessarily as happy in AAPG anymore. They wanted their science to be to have like a stronger voice and being scientifically valid and supported. So I'm not aware of anybody from that group that is still around, but that's what we gather from the years. But the interesting thing is about CPM is an organization that it's quite feisty, and during the late 1960s and 1970s, he went through some growth spurt again, and actually they lost the meaning of SCPM. They became the Society for Sedimentary Geology, and they stripped the SCPM, the acronym, of their meaning. So SCPM is just a vestige of what started in 1926. So, it's literally a very interesting group of people that are evolving, morphing through time, and they're seeking to actually help our society at large. This group, which is an interesting group by itself.
Andrea, SCPM is a society, is an international society, and how many members does it have?
It's an international society. The members number, honestly, I don't know because it fluctuates, which is actually something that we can talk a little bit about it. Because, the membership fee is what makes SCPM, and the journals are what make SCPM. So the membership has been something that's been going up and down. As we all know that, these professional memberships, professional society have been struggling with keeping numbers because people are like, why would I be part of that society if there is not necessarily something I recognize myself in? In the past, used to be a great way to get journals, and that's why SCPM is famous for JSR and Peleus, for instance. But it is like the membership is in the hundreds to thousands, and it goes up and down, and and that's something that the society is actually working really hard to outreach and get more and more people involved. Because, I mean, it is a grassroots society, and it's funded by its own membership. There's no donors, no big private money, no big funding coming in. It's truly a rogue bunch of scientists.
Okay, Andrea, couple of steps back in order to embrace the entire audience of geoscientists that are listening. Tell us a few words about how would you define the so-called sedimentological sciences?
Well, it's in the broad sense, sedimentological sciences are everything that applies into, sediments and the process that carries sediments, both the deposition of present sediments, but also like the changes and maturation of sediment through time. So really like, the formation of sediment and anything that is recorded in that sedimentary record is something that involves sedimentary geosciences. So in large, sedimentary geosciences are extremely important because we have a lot of colleagues out there that might actually look at different aspects, but as soon as they touch the sediments or the sedimentary record, somehow they need to actually become aware and somehow fluent in sedimentary geosciences.
So am I right if I translate sedimentological sciences in mainly the two disciplines of sedimentology and stratigraphy, which are the foundations of much of the earth sciences, including tectonics, paleoclimate, paleoceanography, paleobiology, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, they are indeed something that as soon as you look at into any record, of paleo environment, of paleo earth in general, you had to deal with that sedimentary record. And again, at that point, the importance of the sediment formed at that time will give you an incredible insight on the conditions at that time.
And in which sense are the sedimentological sciences linked to society at large?
Well, sometimes we don't even know how important these are, but in reality, they're extremely important when it comes down to how you look at your condition as a human, and you look at, you live on a coastal plain, you're dealing with, a very active sedimentary, environment, and you will have to understand how your fluxes of sediments, are your modulation of climate, are your atmospheric changes, and you would call it climate modulation, will actually impact your living. And some people might not even know that how impactful that is. And it goes into other big branches of our sciences where you look at the tectonics in large, how Earth evolved through time, how it changes through time. I mean, the contribution of sedimentary geosciences to tectonics are unimaginable when you start actually seeing who actually contributed there. I mean, Bill Dickinson early contribution that generated so many earth scientists were really just looking at sandstone that was generated by something that was going up in the air, which is mountains, and eroded and transported and all that jazz, as Bill would have said. So there is an incredible amount of impact that our sciences have, and SCPM is trying to create this big umbrella of scientists and practitioners that are really involved into working on these topics.
So going into the now back into the International Sedimentological Geosciences Congress, which will be held in Flagstaff in Arizona in April, it seems that this broader sedimentary geosciences community will get together with you and the scientific committee that organized the conference in a time of profound transformations. So what are these transformations that are affecting the sedimentological community so importantly that you needed to create a Congress to debate about it?
Well, I guess the Congress, it's been a process, right? It was the idea, the kernel of the idea was formed in 2014 by a bunch of people that were associated with SCPM. We went out in a beautiful place and we spent 2 days just talking about what we should do to actually foster our beloved sciences, that we started with the idea to having this major Congress that would bring a lot of people together and kind of try to really foster cross-pollination and collaboration. Now, at that point, this is 2014, we also saw that there were some major changes that are happening faster than one might think. It became more and more interesting and important for us to actually start looking at where we're at and where we are going to be in the future. And it doesn't have to be forced upon, the whole Congress to just talk about what is the future of the science or whatnot. But I think it's an opportunity to have, such a Congress happening 6 years later, where we've seen, things are actually changing faster than we thought 6 years ago. For instance, the funding situation is changing, is transforming. And when it comes down to where we're going to be on the foundational, in sciences we were talking about before, sedimentology and stratigraphy, a lot of the funding is being historically related to what the oil industry would put into a lot of, activities for universities and consortia and whatnot. And we saw that thing has been changing in the last few years. And, it's been changing in a very dramatic way in the last 6 months, even though we were not predicting necessarily this kind of changes, but we're seeing it. So it's important that we start, thinking about it and dealing with it, and also, see how we can, attenuate some of these issues as a group, as a community.
Okay, we are going to dig into these issues that you mentioned. We're going to dig into these fast transformations. Let us know what will happen in the Congress. Why should geologists that are listening, they should join the conference?
Yeah, the other things that we did, and again, it's like the scientific committee was relatively hands-off. I just happened to be involved throughout the whole time, but, there's another co-chair, Gene Shea, that is currently working at Repsol, and I had, other co-chairs that organized the plenary session, like Kerry Johnson at the University of Utah. We had the field trip chair, which was Devon Orme at Montana State. So we really come together and say, okay, we want to have a Congress, we want to get together, we want to have a meeting where people can meet and can have an opportunity not only to share their science, but also integrate and talk about big picture things. And so the idea is really to have a Congress where we have a lot of events. We're going to have a lot of field trips. So there's going to be a lot of field courses and also a workshop where we're going to have plenty of opportunities to cross-pollinate. The program is being created in a way, very organically, in a way that people propose themes and sections, but then, we also propose them to have, posters are going to be dominant because we want people to talk and scratch things and use paper. And then also we're going to have, other opportunities, like the PICO sections, where people will have an opportunity to have an e-poster and scroll through data using the big screen, which is something that we already did last year at the symposium on sustainability in San Antonio, ACE in San Antonio. So it's there's all these little things that we try to put together. Where, for instance, Kerry Johnson put together a great plenary session where we're going to have top-notch scientists coming in and bringing the whole Congress together. And everybody will be in the same room. We're all going to, drink and eat together at these talks, and really have the opportunity to, to really listen to colleagues that we admire, and we can learn a lot from it, and and maybe poke them on what their ideas on the future of sedimentary geosciences are. There are 4 plenary speakers, and we're thrilled and excited to have them coming, but also, we have a core workshop, we have workshops before and after, We have students events. Just like that kind of things where we're trying to create a mass, like a critical mass of good geoscientists that can come together and really share information and ideas.
When you want to build up a critical mass, is to tackle exactly which topic? If you had the chance to go on stage and talk, which would be those issues that you would develop in front of the audience? What are the topics that you want the people participating in the conference talk about?
Well, I think again we were quite organic in organizing it, so there will be definitely sessions where you can go in and you can talk on specifically what you want to do, what you're doing right now.
But for you, Andrea, what is close to your heart?
For me, I'm definitely very interested in having a geoscience community that is more involved in societal decisions. So I think we are doing a great job sometimes. Many of our colleagues out there are doing a fantastic job in an individual sense, but I think that our community could be stronger. And this is my personal opinion, so it's something that I want to share with most people by saying, like, maybe we can do better as a community at getting ourselves somewhere where, the decisions are made for the future.
Can you give us an example of what is a societal decision?
For instance, we have an incredible amount of very good colleagues that are very good at getting on certain places, but in general, I think, the getting into making some political decision on the future of our, planet, or the decisions that are made to, really attenuate certain situations that are becoming critical. I think, that the earth scientists and the sedimentary geoscientists should be more involved. And, and some people will say, well, I'm involved. That's 1, 2, 3 people. It's fine. I just think that at the level of knowledge, our group of, our society, the Sedimentary Geosciences Society and community, it could be much more vocal on many things.
Now, help us understand more about these political decisions. Are you thinking about maybe producing water from aquifers or polluting the air with CO2, or extracting certain minerals from mines? What are exactly thinking about?
Well, to me, it's like one of the things that are extremely interested and intrigued, and I know many of the people that are coming to the conference will be talking about this, are our, coastal environment, right? They're very variable. They're very susceptible to changes, and they're frail in many ways, and they will have to change. They will change necessarily because we're not going to necessarily stop what we're doing right now. And this is not, this is beyond, the talks we want to do about, what the future should be for the science or whatnot. But I think having more sedimentary geoscientists involved in certain decisions, having more people educated about sedimentary geosciences, is something that I am really interested in. Since I spend a lot of time with young kids, and I see that there is not necessarily a lot of people that are aware of what living on a coastal plain means. They think that things are going to be just fine, I'm just saying that it's an area where the more we know, the better we're off. And I think in sedimentary geosciences and our understanding of the past can really push us into the future. We look at the sedimentary record, we can see how these systems, the positional environment, changed through time in the past. We can help predicting what the future will be. We don't necessarily have to manicure nature or force nature to do what we want it to do. We can actually see how nature worked in the past, and we can, facilitate what is going to be in the future. and that is going to have to be done through education. So, right now, in the last 2 years, I've been extremely interested in education and, problems that are, affecting our society.
Andrea, we're in conversation with Andrea Fildani, co-chair of the Scientific Committee of the International Sedimentological Geosciences Congress, which will be held in April in Flagstaff, in Arizona. And I was intrigued by the Congress motto, which is, quote unquote, the past as the key to a sustainable future. What do you mean by sustainable?
Well, first of all, we are the motto was worked out by a group of people going back and forth, and it's kind of interesting because we needed to have a motto, and we didn't necessarily have one at the beginning. So this is like 3 years into the organization. We started tossing things around, pushing things, and eventually, I think the past as a key to the future seemed to appeal to most, as we are all sedimentary geoscientists that look into the past, the sedimentary record. It depends. Some of us work on millennial scale, some millions of years, but things are going back in time. We can take a look at it. So we were really saying we can look at this sedimentary record and we can really come up with some solutions for the future. So it's a key for us to understand what is going to happen in the future. And then eventually the sustainability is the sustainable word. It's one that some of my friends would say is non-sustainable in its use because it's been sometimes abused. But the bottom line is, if you look at the key values, is if you go to the bare bone essence of this term, sustainability, people just say it's the ability to be maintained at a certain rate or level. So we want to be able to exist, constantly at a certain level, and this has been used a lot. But every time people use it, there is the social economic aspect, the engineering aspect. There's also engineers. All of a sudden, we have even geographers involved into this. But the bottom line is that the Earth, it's what we're interacting with different aspects. Is the biosphere, is the geosphere, and all this sustainability discussion should be processed, should be viewed through a sedimentary geoscience glass, in my opinion. And I think this is an opportunity for us to, by having a model like this, to start thinking about it. I doubt it. I don't have any solution, and I don't want to necessarily push any solution, but I think having a group of people coming together and looking at such a model, they might say, oh, this is kind of not necessarily applied to me, or it can be like, oh, I haven't thought about it, but it's actually something that I might start thinking about it right now.
Andrea, you said once Rome, the capital of Italy, Rome, is sustainable. Las Vegas is not. Can you explain?
Well, I told you this during a conversation. I wasn't drinking yet, but... I grew up in Rome, and when you look around Rome, and you look at the history, Rome is maybe it's unsustainable right now. People cannot, sustain it at different levels, but it's a city that's been there for 3,000 years. To be there for 3,000 years, you have to find a way to be sustainable, to be that, that maintain a certain rate or certain level. So again, sustainability in the meaning of the ability to be maintained at a certain rate or level. Rome had ups and downs, where everything has ups and downs and seems to have a certain cyclicity. I don't want to talk about Giambattista right now, but the bottom line is that there's a city that was there for 3,000 years. So that's impressive per se. It's a mess when you go visit. I love it, but it's just my problem. But when you go to Las Vegas, which you might like it too, and I'm not saying it's not necessarily a great place, but it's hard to sustain it. I mean, it's not just me. It's just like the way you look at anything that is in the Western, it's going to have some issues with sustainability, and there's way better scientists dealing with these kind of problems already. What I'm saying is that I would like to see more and more, sedimentary geoscientists involved into this, and there is a lot of them already working on it. But as I was telling you in that conversation, maybe we can talk about it a little bit later, but, sometimes our colleagues tend to say, well, we're not just sedimentologists, we do something else. I think sedimentary geoscientists should be very proud of what they do, and they should claim it hard, because, we impacted so many subdisciplines that it's just hard not to, it's hard for me not to say it. It's just hard for me not to say that paleoclimatology is highly impacted by sedimentary geoscience. And paleoceanography is highly impacted by sedimentary geosciences. But they don't necessarily recognize themselves as, coming to SCPM all the time, because they go to other, venues, or they talk to other people. But that's okay. It's just, this is another opportunity to actually go talk out to other people and come back and share, and actually have that communal opportunity to really come together.
So are you telling us, Andrea, that these profound transformations are creating an identity crisis in the sedimentary geologist? Is a sort of crisis in the sedimentology?
I don't think sedimentary geosciences are doing that poorly. I think that they're doing really well. It's just a matter of, in many cases they're doing so well that people kind of forgot that they're there. But there's been, in the last few years, some panic related to opportunities, right? So, most of the time you go to the university, you get your degrees, and you think about, what am I going to do after that? It's been for a long time that, the sedimentary geosciences, the pillar, the foundational sedimentology and stratigraphy is formed, like a practitioner for the industry. Now, if that goes away, that doesn't really mean that the practitioner goes away. We need to find out, what to do next. We need to, and I think that's where this communal effort should come in, where we have a lot of super smart people in our community, and we start thinking about okay, maybe that industry effort might go away, or might go in a cycle which is in a downturn for a little period. What can we do? And I think a lot of people are very creative. Some people already have some solution. I'm actually inviting these people to share with the rest of the community, so people can see that you don't form necessarily in a certain way. Certain values, certain understanding of the rocks is still extremely viable.
I'm curious about these contacts that you have with the people that they already have a tentative solution. Can you expand on this? What could be the solution?
Well, again, I think there's a lot of the paleoclimatology, the geochemistry groups. They are not necessarily looking at the sedimentary record in its complexity. You're very familiar, probably, for people that look into mudstones, and they might describe the phases, but they might forget to do the geochemistry, or vice versa, or they integrate the two, but that they don't look at something else. So there is, they look at the geomechanical portion of it, but they don't look at, what the geochemical component is. So I guess it's there are some opportunities out there that goes into, figuring out, sediment rates on rivers, but also erosion rates, but then you put the sedimentary record and try to figure out what a river does when it's actually truly free, and then, maybe stop gauging the rivers into dams or big, levees or something. Those are just examples of something that comes on top of my mind. It's there's so much that we can do, and it's so little that, as a community, I see out there. I'm sorry, but we got the engineers, and I love the engineers. I have a lot of friends that are engineers. They claim environmental way ahead of time. They have environmental engineering. We don't have necessarily that voice, and some universities they're coming up with different things, but it looks to me that there's a hurry in coming up with something, but not necessarily a thought process behind it. And I think for instance, it's very important to have people from different, very diverse backgrounds coming together and have, this conversations. And it doesn't need to be like officially driven. It can be over, drinks in the evening where you can have this conversation, and then hopefully, some people will start sharing and things just pick up from there.
Andrea, what do you personally do in order to find a solution?
Well, we all do our little things, right? So I'm, right now I work for a nonprofit, and I'm actually, I work on scientific problems that interest me, and I try my best to actually, deliver that science in a way that's communicated across. I mean, if it's an effort. I write my papers in a very easy way, communicated very easily. Some people might like it, some people might not. But the bottom line is that really I've been working on, major climate modulation on big rivers in North America, and, I try to submit papers that are very readable, hoping that, people see the value of actually the kind of, work that we have been doing, because again, I don't work by myself in a tower, but I've been collaborating with a lot of colleagues, and I think we did work that is extremely relevant for our society. But again, it's my personal struggle to figure out what can be done to help.
What do you think about the Geologys Dad? They just do geology because they like the ludic side of geology. They like to be in the outcrop. They like to be in the lab. They like science for the sake of science and writing articles, but they are not proactive. What do you think about that?
I love it. I became a geologist because I really couldn't stand to be in a room, and I wanted to be out there. So I think they're doing the right thing. If that one gets them going, it's great. I think but at the same time, I think they're doing a fantastic job, keeping themselves funded and busy. My main concern would be that this possibilities, these opportunities might go away. So, and I want them to actually, yes, continue doing this, because the ludic aspect of science is fundamental. If you don't play with science, you're a sad scientist. And I'm sorry, but I think actually Einstein said something similar, and I'm not even close to that. It's just saying that it really needs to be intriguing, it needs to be fascinating, it needs to be an adventure, it needs to be fun. But then, when the funds are going to go away, you will have to face that reality. And I hope that by that point we will have a lot of fun, ludic aspect of sedimentary geosciences that will appeal to them and to their next generation. Which, by the way, they're training the next generation. And I know that their universities, I know that their bosses are looking into what are you doing when you train the offsprings, when you train the new generations, and all of a sudden, if you don't train them well, if you don't train them to get jobs, somebody might come back to you and say, okay, listen, that was a lot of fun, but what is it? What was it? And I think, they should keep doing it because it's a great aspect of geology, but I think they also, there's an important message there that they need to start thinking about. I think the question for myself is, are we in a crisis? I don't have the answers. I think some of the messages that I receive from colleagues out there, some people might think that there is a crisis going on or some sort, but again, it's what is it? You're a fellow Italian. You read Pirandello growing up. There's one view, my view, and then there's your view, and then there's 1,000 more views, and they're all going to be very valid. So good luck. Which one is going to be? And I think it's the effort to try and come together might create some common perception of this.
100,000 different views, yes. So, Andrea, you think that the geologists, they do not lobby enough? They are not very good communicating?
No, I think that they're excellent communicators. I think scientists are excellent communicators in general.
What about sedimentary geologists?
Well, I think we actually, many of our colleagues do a really good job at communicating, I think. And the thing is that, I think, sometimes you just don't get the right audience to communicate to. But I've seen so much effort going into communication. I've seen so much effort, from university level. Also, internally, I work more than 16 years in research centers in different companies. And most of these things that, you really want to communicate. And I think, there's a lot of people that do a very good job at communicating. The point is probably sometimes we need to learn how to communicate at different levels. So, if you're talking to a kid that's 10-year-old or talking to a 30-year-old lawyer, you're just going to have to tune it differently, and you need to figure out ways to communicate it differently. So a lot of very, very good colleagues are working on that. To me, it's been always an exhilarating experience to try to communicate at different level. But sometimes I have to admit, I had 2 papers that they were on Nature, and I'm a trained scientist, and I couldn't read them for how complicated they were, and mostly because they were not really telling exactly what they were trying to do. So I thought, there is still that, ivory tower. This is what I do. I'm a very important scientist, so deal with it. Versus an incredible amount of people that are involved into the communication. So generalizing it they're bad communicators, it's not. I think it doesn't help anybody, but I think there's an incredible amount of people doing a great job of communicating. And there's a lot of resources out there, so it's just a matter of outreach. So most of my appeals go into share, outreach, and talk to others, and keep the community healthy. And diverse. It's where things move. It feels like things are happening, or they could happen.
If you had the chance to talk with the students, the university, what is the thing that you would like to communicate with them that it is not done enough?
Well, I've been on an incredible amount of committees through the years in different universities. There is one thing I tell the students is always whatever you do, why does it matter? And sometimes because I'm on their committee, I have a little bit more pull, and I can actually force them to even go after some of the statements from their advisors and just say, listen, you're doing this work. This is great, but it's going to, relate to a community of maybe 10 people. If you cannot tell what you're doing to, literally an elementary school, crowd, then you're probably doing something that, that's probably really, really important. But, you should try to actually bring it down to everybody to understand it. So, I really, and the other things that really concern me is all the students that I help graduating, they have great jobs. But the last 2 or 3, they're going through struggle. They're having to look at different things, and and before it was always there's 2 pools where you can go in it, and now I think that there is a 3rd pool, maybe a 4th pool that they can start looking into it, and and that can be the kind of opportunities and opening that we want to look into.
Andrea, you have 3 kids, right?
I do.
Would you like your kids to become geologists?
All right, now you caught me off guard. I dream for them to become geologists, to understand the planet the way that I want to understand it, but I'm extremely happy for them to just do whatever they want, which means that my middle son is my oldest son is actually pretty much into sciences, but my middle son is actually into meteorology, which is fantastic. So he has all planned out what he's going to do, and my youngest daughter, she's just looked at me, she's sure, I'll be a scientist, whatever, but the bottom line is like they can, they can do whatever they want. But I don't know if Sedimentary Geosciences or geosciences in general is the best way to go for them. But why not? I mean, they just need to love it. And that's what I keep telling my kids and the students I work with. If you love it, if you're doing a good job, and if you have a passion for it, go for it.
So that means that you believe in a future for the profession of geologists, regardless of this wind of change.
Of course. That it would be. First of all, is like I think some people think that there are changes. Some people might just get back to me and say, "You're a fool. Like everything is perfectly fine," and I'm happy to hear that too. But in general, I think what I try to push through here is that I think we have an amazing opportunity to really get sedimentary geosciences out there as much as we can. Lobby a little bit for it in a very nice way, not necessarily the lobbying always might have some negative connotation. No, I mean we just go out there. We try to share what we know, what we do, and then share with passion. People will grab on it. And I mean every time I go out there and I'm hiking somewhere in some beautiful mountains, I meet somebody and I start talking about things that they see. They're like, "Whoa, it's amazing! Like what you guys know." It's like, well, but it's actually you can grab it, you can see it. It's just you haven't thought about it. So it's that kind of things where it's so easy to. My father-in-law is like he wants to be a geologist all the time because he's like, he comes out for hikes and he come back home and he's just like, I can't believe that was like a Permian, like sandstone. He's like, well, yeah, but you walked on it probably for 60 years, but it just never really cared until you see it through the glass of the Sedimentary Geosciences.
Andrea, you've been involved, as you just said, in a not-for-profit. You are in committees in the academia, and you work for the oil and gas industry. Can you tell us about how the relationships among these players evolved in this last decade, maybe, so that you can explain better these transformations or fast transformations that you were mentioning before?
Well, I mean, it is like, things do change quickly, and the industry is extremely jittery when he has this transformation. And I don't want to speak specifically on the industry because it's been such a great place to work, and I had an amazing amount of colleagues, and many of them are still there. So and I talk to them almost daily, so to many of them. So the thing is there's been changes that really cause some interesting changes in the funding structure. For instance, I mean when I was in grad school, which was 20 years ago now, just the industry needed something that it's not necessarily fashionable anymore. So there is definitely that cyclicity in it that would imply that changes need to happen and they need to be modulated through time. And I suspect that these changes will keep happening. For instance, in right now, they just think that they need something. And again, it's most of their needs, most of their changes are on a quarterly basis. The industry works really fast-paced. And so, maybe in 2 years' time, things have turned around again. I think, that's the way that they do things. I hope that the bigger community of sedimentary geosciences can be a little bit more stable, kind of, smooth out the ups and downs, and actually have a constant output of what they can do, because we can do an incredible amount.
Where should go a geologist that is laid off and or is not attracted anymore by oil and gas nowadays? So where a sedimentary geoscientist could go and work and have a salary and still have a place where to put the passion and have some fun?
Well, as I was telling you before, it's a pity when I see that we're not involved with all sorts of attenuation of transformation of our planet. So I think that that's what the community should be lobbying to actually start forming earth scientists that could help, like, attenuate the issues for coastal communities. I mean, right now, we sometimes you hear some of the solutions. A lot of the solutions are engineering solutions. I think, we can probably help, like, a certain level to start, like, bringing other things, other aspects. I mean, the planet moves. There's no question about it. The planet evolves. The planet shapes and do things. So, I think sometimes the long-term view of a sedimentary geoscientist can help, like, smooth, like, the fear of certain things. So you can just say, like, listen, okay, your house is built on certain things, and if there was, if the sediments were like 20 meters below sea level before, well, you might want to think about what that meant, and then maybe you can start, like, planning your cities a little bit differently, and help, like, with attenuating things, and not actually being reactive, but be proactive. So I think, there's an incredible amount of things, and this is still, like, in the sedimentary records. I mean, you can understand, like, a Cretaceous fluvial system and go work on the Mississippi River. Why not? It's just, you can do, like, sediment budgets on an ancient system and then try to transfer it into the modern system. And this is something that, it's still there. There are not many jobs for us yet because other groups claim these jobs. But I think, if as a community we become a little stronger, these jobs are going to start coming the way that, toward, the sedimentary geoscientists. I mean, it's like, with the same things with the sustainability big issues that people have been talking about. It's like, who understands, like, past Earth better than us, better than the sedimentary geoscientists? And I think, it's extremely valid to look at, the past and just say, like, this is what might happen in the future for this reason, for that reason. And we can attenuate it by doing this, by doing that, rather than reacting. We can be proactive and we can try to help.
Do you think that these issues that you are describing right now are typical of the sedimentary geologists, which are convened in Flagstaff for this Congress in April, or is something that all the other subdisciplines of geology, they are living in the same way?
Yeah, well, honestly, I don't know what we're going to get in Flagstaff. I mean, this chat we're having is to try to reach out and see how many people are interested in coming over and talk to other people. I don't know what we're going to get. I cannot really talk for like, large group of people. I've been, again, it's like in everything that we did in the last few years, we've been on a committee, and there's been a lot of, like, going back and forth and chatting. And so I think, I feel pretty comfortable in saying that Flagstaff, we feel like it's a great opportunity to talk about a lot of different things. But I don't know who's going to be there. Probably hopefully the session chairs and the people that submitted their abstracts, that I review all of them. But other than that, like, I don't really, I cannot tell you what it's going to be. I mean, it's kind of an exciting, but it's a closed box that I don't know what we're going to get after this. I mean, it might be a complete fiasco. I'm not afraid of that, but we're going to put everything in it to make it a great success.
I think that we didn't mention that this Sedimentological Geosciences Congress, an international congress, is the very first one of its kind. Is that right?
Well, okay. There have been a lot of very first, congresses, but, like, this is the first that we put together as SCPM. I mean, it's a bunch of, scientists and extremely democratic process. We put together a Congress that we hope is going to be appealing internationally to a large community, and we're hoping to actually have it happening every 4 years, which doesn't mean that there's going to be in any conflict nor competition against other Congress, because we're actually offsetting this from the IAS big Congress that happens every 4 years. So every 2 years there will be a Congress. This Geosciences, like the 2020 is the SCPM took the lead for organizing it. There will be a 2022 from IAS to organize it, and SCPM will be participating. And then our next big thing would be the next ISGS would be our next congress will be in 2024. So it's quite a big thing because of course this one, the first one in this case goes well. We'll definitely have people starting working already into the next one. With maybe a little bit more hands-on on certain issues. I mean, I think we're going to learn so much from this Congress that we can start shaping the future of the other ones.
Where can the listeners have a hold of you, and where can they see news about the Congress? I see there's a webpage, sepm2020.org. What are the dates of the Congress?
No, I've been working on it for so long that I don't even know the dates.
Okay, so SEPM 2020.
I know exactly it's the last week of April.
Yeah.
But there's going to be so much before and after that, the days are going to be literally Sunday night there's an icebreaker, and then it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, it's full on Congress. And then we're asking people to stick around on Wednesday night, big dinner, big talk, big plenary session, and then field trips starting after, as always, big, a lot of workshops. So we're hoping really to get a lot of people to really stick around for the whole week or around the whole week. So
the Congress is going to be 26th, 27th, 28th, and 29th of April 2020. Yep. And it's going to be in the High Country Conference Center in Flagstaff, Arizona. Yep. And Andrea, before giving you the mic, because we are a radio station here where you can also explain whatever you want, regardless what I ask you. Before that, I would like, since I know you are from Rome, I would like you to explain to the audience how you see Rome, your city, through the eyes and the mindset of a geologist. You don't simply see the beautiful architectures and the art and the urbanistic side of that eternal city. You see way more than that if you put your hat of geologist. Can you describe Rome with that hat?
Well, yeah, it is actually a really exciting. I love Rome since I was a little kid. I grew up with the art and the history, but when I became a scientist, a geologist, I started seeing other things through. The civilization of Rome, the impact of Rome is related to their hills, right? And their hills, the hills of Rome are like lava flows from two big volcanic complexes, one in the south and one in the north. Now, when you have beautiful volcanic flows coming into close to a river that eroded through it, you're going to have phreatic, water coming through and just giving you water, some of that naturally sparkling water, that would just cause that natural way for the Italians, especially the Romans, to really like their sparkling waters. And, and then all of a sudden, you can see the different aqueducts that different emperors and different popes had to build to bring water to Rome, where the people were needing to receive that fundamental source of of the water. I mean, and again, the Roman army would train on the floodplains. The market was on the floodplains, but they would retire up on the hills when there was a big storm. So they never had any issues with flooding until later, when during the medieval time, people decided to actually start living in the floodplains, and then all the tragedy of flooding started happening because they were just living in the wrong spot. So the Romans never had issues with the Tiber. So all of a sudden, after 600 years or 700 years of dealing with the Tiber without any issue, we started having problems when people forgot about understanding what that river was doing in that area. And people were drinking the river water until they got sick, of course, and then all of a sudden they started drinking aqueduct water that were coming from the outside. So, and if you get water from the limestone, ridges of the Apennines, you will get hard water, so that caused other issues that people start discovering later on. So, all these things to me, just it's a fascinating thing that built on top of civilization and why Rome was there, why things changed through time and how they changed. And eventually, the levees, the way that they constructed, the city now to control the Tiber, which has been a violation of the Tiber in many ways, has actually been pretty effective. And you can really see where they actually diverted the Tiber to make it smaller and make sure that it wouldn't flood certain part of Rome. So you can really go through that and have a lot of fun with the city, which is geologically is fascinating too.
It is fascinating what you just said. Is there a name for this kind of subdiscipline of geology?
I like history, and I think geologists are all historians in many ways. They might not think about that themselves, like that. But I've seen a lot of books and mixed books and integration, but there's not necessarily people that are doing it for a living, I would say.
All right, so here we go. The future of our profession could be a new subdiscipline.
There's so much to do and talk about in every, different countries, and just travel across the United States. You can really go on. And I mean, one reason why I went to Flagstaff is because we were in the heart of the West, and I thought that was something that it would be really fun for people coming internationally to be in the wild West, right? Because Flagstaff still has that feeling, and the geology of Flagstaff is pretty nice too, and the fact that there's this island of green and the biosphere that is related to the desert. It's an island in the desert, pretty much.
Andrea, I'm going to leave you this couple of minutes for you to give shout-outs or explain further topics that you want to talk about. Andrea Fildani, co-chair of the Scientific Committee of the International Sedimentological Geosciences Congress, held in Flagstaff, Arizona, 26th to 29th of April. And the mic is yours, Andrea.
Well, thanks. I mean, I just said, it's been a great honor to work with SCPM, the Society of Sedimentary Geology. It's a great bunch. It's an incredibly, organized group, and with such an outreach. And I think, and I'm hoping that a lot of the people that are listening to us will join us in Flagstaff. Again, it's going to be a great opportunity to talk about different topics. We can go on different scales and talk about our own research. We can also start thinking about how our research impacts the bigger picture and others, and then really how our research can impact the future of humans, which I think sedimentary geologists are already doing that. They're just maybe not getting enough credit for it.
Thank you very much, Andrea.